Hi, my name is Jihi Bustamante. I am the co-founder of Everyday Spy and a former CIA targeter.
And my name is Andrew Bustamante. I am also co-founder of Everyday Spy with my wife here, and I am a former CIA intelligence core collector. I think in summary, if it's safe to put your own memoir into a summary, but in summary, we leveraged a new way of collecting intelligence that was based off of the way terrorists executed terrorist operations. And that was something that CIA had never considered before. If you think back to 2001, 2002, the United States went to war against terrorism. But there was no other country in the world that joined us. The Chinese didn't help, the Russians didn't help, the Iranians didn't help. Even NATO and our EU partners, they contributed money and they contributed troops and weapons, but it wasn't a fight for them. It was a fight for us. So for 22 years, we fought a war on terror against every extremist organization you can remember: Al Qaeda, Jamal Islamiyah, ISIS, country, the Muslim Brotherhood, terrorist organizations we don't even remember anymore. And we put trillions of dollars into fighting that war. And Jihi came up with the idea that if we borrowed from the education that we learned in that fight, then we could use that education against all of our adversaries and they would have no idea how to unmask or unravel our operations. And that is what Shadow Cell is about. It's about how we created a terrorist cell. It operated like a terrorist cell, but it supported national security endeavors for the United States.
Well, Andy and I were sent to, solve this problem of Falcon. We needed new intelligence sources in Falcon. So we were sent out into the field to start the process of getting those. But we were like, how are we supposed to do this? So I can find somebody and Andy can create an operational plan, but we needed case officers to actually be on board with us to go out and meet them. And then we happened to be in a place where we had access to a tech officer. We had access to a linguist who spoke the language of Falcon. And suddenly I was like, we have all these different components that if we could bring everybody together into a team, into a small cell, everybody's different skill sets would complement each other and we could really make serious headway, which is very different than the way that the agency had worked in the past, where a case officer was pretty much on their own to go out and meet somebody and hope that they were the right person.
When you're collecting foreign state secrets, it by definition requires that you collect those secrets from the foreign state. So you're actually finding a way to engage the person who is your sworn enemy. And in many cases, especially in the shadow cell, we knew that our sworn enemy, we were their sworn enemy too. So we had to find a way to engage these targets and have these targets engage us in a way where we could ultimately cultivate them to start feeding us technical secrets, weapons secrets, state secrets, military movements, satellite codes, etc. And that's the real magic of espionage. That's what makes spying so incredibly interesting. The shit we see in movies is just there to feed our 5 or 10-year-old selves. The real sophistication of espionage comes through how you talk to and cultivate these relationships. When we wrote Shadow Cell, we wanted to find a way to still feed the 10-year-old self, but also educate, the midlife self to understand, hey, there are real skills here that go into this very professional, very unique art form. And hopefully, if you learn some of these skills from us in Shadow Cell, you'll be better off in your professional life, in your career, in your chosen path, whether you're a writer or whether you're a bureaucrat.
For me, the lessons from the book, most of the lessons that I thought were in the book that I wanted to impart to people had to do with the fact that we are just human beings. So all of the people who work for CIA are just people. They're smart people and they're driven people and they're patriotic people, but they could be anybody. Anybody could work for the CIA. And then, the work that they do really is, you know, in a lot of aspects, a sacrifice to keep our nation safe because Nobody ever knows about the work that they do. And so you have these amazing people making these sacrifices to keep us safe that nobody will ever know about. And then the people that we are, turning, for lack of a better word, that you know, we are playing on their vulnerabilities and their motivations to get them to betray their own country, to give the United States intelligence to keep our nation safe. Those are real people too, just like
Mhm.
us. So, ever since we became parents and we've traveled the world as parents, we have realized that no matter what your economic status, no matter what your nationality, every single parent, especially if you see parents with toddlers, every single parent looks exactly the same. So we really are the same. We have the same basic core needs of connection and security. And if you can provide those things for somebody else, if you can identify the motivation or the vulnerability of another person and you can provide the answer to that need, you can get almost anything you want.
Jihi has actually highlighted to me a number of these pillars that we teach. So espionage is a team sport. That's one of the critical things that the book will show you, how
Yes.
no one person can actually operate on their own. It's not like you see James Bond or Jason Bourne in the field. And then we talk about the importance of having to marry multiple disciplines. You have to use technology to inform human intelligence. You have to use human intelligence to inform translation. You have to use translation to inform interpersonal dynamics. And there's all these things going on. And prior to Shadow Cell, prior to what we built in the book, CIA had a whole different way of operating. They always put people into stovepipes. So all of the analysts would only sit with analysts, and all of the interpreters would only sit with interpreters, and all of the tech people would only sit with tech people. And that made a very difficult cooperative environment because you had to ask permission before you could even talk to somebody else about your idea.
Mhm.
And there's all sorts of problems with that. Jihi has also highlighted the importance of taking risks, not just the think outside of the box kind of risks, but taking real risks with things that you care about, risking your reputation, risking your life in many cases, risking the chance of not being promoted. Every person inside the shadow cell, every person who joined us, put their career at risk to try to help us because we had an innovative new idea, but innovative and new does not guarantee you a promotion. And everybody in CIA is competing for limited numbers of promotions. So we're incredibly grateful to these men and women because not only did they make the time that we had building the shadow cell so enjoyable, but they also literally changed the future of national security for the United States. Our children are safer because these people took a chance experimenting with a new modus operandi that we devised.